not, to answer the question whether I would take donations or not, I would not. My whole campaign is based on zero ties to big donors, special interests, developers, or anything. This is just a campaign for by local residents, the community. So I would not, and that would be why. Police is a very important part of society. They are law enforcement. It's the reason why we live under the rule of law. It's the reason why, first responders are key to maintaining our society the way it is, civil. So they're very important, but yes, I would not take donations from police, fire, or any big donors or union because of how my campaign is being run, what I'm basing my campaign on. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howard. Unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you. I've spent time working with groups talking about unions and in particular police unions. And no, I will not personally accept donations from a police union, but that's not even the end of it, because we're sitting here focusing a lot of that focus on unions, when the reality is every police union has a police chief and has a infrastructure of policing. So the question is about not accepting donations, but I think one of the questions we need to ask is how do we make a difference and make our community safer? And so the money, not just from the police union, but the police chief, I won't accept it. But what I will say I will work on is ensuring that we have more transparency, because this is the only occupation that has public safety involved. When I say public safety, I'm not just talking police and fire, I'm talking about doctors. When something happens in society, someone has to go in to address it. Attorneys, when something happens, someone has to go in. So it's the only occupation I know of where there's no real oversight. There's no real oversight. Doctors have a situation for malpractice. Attorneys have the bar associations that grade them. So it's more than just accepting money or not. We need to get to a root cause of this issue of policing and people feeling safe in their community.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Major.
So I absolutely would not take any donations from the police unions. I'm also actually not accepting any campaign donation from any PACs, and I'm not accepting donations from special interests as well. This is a clean money campaign. It's a grassroots campaign. It's an individual Oceanside campaign. And because of COVID, we actually have not and will not solicit any donations actively in this campaign, because everybody is having a hard enough time right now paying the bills. And we're just doing our part to get the word out. But I do believe that beyond dealing with obstacles that we're facing in this particular issue, we also need community-led, citizen-led policing, which is a little bit more than community-led policing. So this is something that the citizens of the city of Oceanside would have direct control and oversight of their operations, just to make sure that things are going the way that they should be. And also, being in the field as a paramedic, I can tell you that these body cameras are really important. I'll get to that a little bit later, but I do believe that we need to keep that footage on file longer than 6 months. That's all we have it on file for right now. And that's really hard, especially if you have a court case that's, long and drawn out. So really, those are the things that I would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marchi. Okay, sir, you're going to need to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes. Now, can you hear me better?
Yes.
Yes, answering a straight up question. I will not take any union's money, not even from the police, not even from the fireman or any other unions. My motive is, don't even think to contribute to my campaign thinking that you can own me or buy me. Like many other politicians, they pay and they receive money, and they have to make some actions in our city council that most citizens, they're not aware. And then it costs tremendous amount of money to revert any decision taken. I know most of the money coming to the city is coming from development money. My understanding is developers, they are the ones that are sustaining the funding of the city. And we need to change that. We have, like I said, we got high paying ranking officials that they're making more than 200,000. You know how much is the cost to the city? 300 or 400,000, because we need to pay all the benefits and all that commingling part. My mission is I'm going to review all contracts that they are already written in the city, and I will trim those contracts to the minimum. I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm an engineer. Numbers is my gig, and
Thank you, sir.
we
Go
need
ahead
to
and
put
finish up your
action to
thought.
this.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Rodriguez.
Thank you.
I'm going to be short and sweet with this answer. Campaign contributions, as confirmed by the United States Constitution, is a freedom of speech item. So have I received money from the police union in this campaign? No, I haven't. But campaign contributions is freedom of speech. And it's required to be disclosed to the public, and the public can make a decision based on funds you take or don't take if they want to vote for you. But I can tell you firsthand, campaigns are very expensive. You're looking at reaching each voter at least 6 times that's going to vote for you. It needs to be strategic, organized, and it costs a lot of money. And so if you don't raise money, you're not winning a campaign. That's just the hard truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you for the question. When I first ran for city council, I was still working as a public defender, and you can imagine. In the courtroom, there is professionalism with respect to the prosecutor, the judge, the probation officer, and police officers. The reason why I decided to run for city council was because of what was happening on our streets with respect to our youth, especially the gang injunctions. So I decided to run, and so that I could change the, and it had to be systemic change. And so since then, yes, I have received contributions, but absolutely knowing where I stand on what we need to do at the grassroots level. I've always been an activist all my adult life. Will I be receiving contributions? No. From police, from fire? No. I am not the kind of person that will vote a certain way. That is unfortunately what is happening with the Firefighters Association. I had to, vote a certain way, otherwise they weren't going to be supporting me. And I can't support the North River Farms project, and they, pretty much wanted me to support another person who I couldn't support. So I am for the people, and it has to be government, it has to be by the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chavez, if you can unmute yourself.
Sure. Thank you very much for asking that question. You really hit the issue. I want to be clear with you. And as the 2 terms I'm in City Council of Oceanside, I never got money from the police unions, and I don't plan on taking it, and they're not talking to me, which I understand. When I was in the Assembly, Shirley Weber, who I'm sure you know, had a number of police reform initiatives went forward. And if you want to know where I stand on that, call Shirley. Say, hey, what do you think about Rocky? Because Shirley would always come to me when she needed a Republican to stand up to talk about community safety, because we agreed in the same thing about how young Black children and young Mexican children are being pulled aside. So I was one of the justice reform people while I was there. Now, back in 2006 in the City Council, we started community policing. When Esther was talking, she was right. Back in 2002, when I got on, police officers are riding around in cars. And when we said they got to be out in the community, and that was one of our big efforts. And the police chief we have right now has been doing the community policing. And when the Black Lives Matter issue was going down in Oceanside, one of the things I did was talking to the police chief saying, so how's this going? How are we doing that? And he says they're doing it in a very respectful way, and they're marching, and we're making sure it goes well. Because that's the rule of the police. They have a right to do the First Amendment. And I'll make this one comment. Somebody talked about you got to take the money or you don't have a campaign. That's somebody who hasn't ran a lot of campaigns, because in Oceanside, it's about the voters that count. And that's where I'll be. And I also have money, personal money.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think we got to everybody with that question. I just want to remind everyone to put your questions in the Q&A. And so therefore, any questions we don't get to tonight, we're going to email the questions directly to the panelists. And so we're going to go with our next question, and you will have 1 minute to answer this question. The pandemic has greatly damaged our local economy. If elected mayor, what will you do to restore Oceanside's economy? And we're going to start this next question with Mr. Garcia. The pandemic has greatly damaged our local economy. If elected mayor, what will you do to restore Oceanside's economy? You have 1 minute, sir. Please unmute yourself.
I hate that. Okay, so the key here is for city council, or my plan is to work with the Economic Development Commission in Oceanside. My opinion is that all the commissions or committees in Oceanside are being underutilized. For starters, there's a number of unused land for industrial development, for economic development. It's just been sitting there for years. My plan is to work with empower the Economic Development Commission to create or bring businesses to Oceanside. More businesses create more jobs creates more revenue, and you have an economic cycle. So I think the key for this is to empower those committees to work with the city, with the business owners, with the Chamber of Commerce to create more jobs. That's going to be the key. I think the key for this is to empower those committees.
Thank you so much. Mr. Howard.
Yes. One thing to keep in mind when we start talking about COVID is that it is a global pandemic. It's not just a local issue. We're a small part of that global pandemic. But what we have to do is to focus on that budget on how we focus on the science and start the opening. No matter how fast we open, no one is going to engage in this economy when they don't feel safe. So we work with staff, ensure that what we're doing is smart, because our staff is great, but we have to challenge them so that we can work together to come up with how we're going to be spending to help our economy grow in Oceanside.
Thank you, sir. And now we'll go with Mr. Major.
So as a paramedic and public health expert, I think the biggest thing that we need to do is minimize our risk. We need to do risk mitigation. And so a lot of what that involves is making sure that we have a sanitary city, more hand washing stations across the city. I know the county has some, but it's not enough. We've also got to be able to help businesses by relaxing some of their permitting and zoning ordinances. I've written a lot about this. In fact, I just had an email that came out, and if you check our website, you can take a look at my specific plan for COVID. I think, again, improved sanitation protocols for transit stations. So we're using the best, most cost-effective systems to keep our city safe and clean, better signs, automated communications, including digital billboards and automated systems throughout the city, mostly downtown, as a reminder to people that are coming in the city, regular small business forums, eviction protection. We need continuing protection, mediation.
Thank you, sir. I'll let you finish up your thoughts.
Thank you.
Hey, Ms. Williams, have you been skipping Jack Feller for a reason? Because he didn't answer the police question, and now I notice you're on make.
Oh, he's here. Okay. I will go back to Mr. Feller. I didn't see him over here on my screen. He'll get a chance.
Yeah, because he didn't get to answer the police question, and I just want to be fair to everybody. So I noticed he was missed though.
Okay, I'll make sure I go back to him.
I did answer the police question.
I was going to say, I think he answered first.
That was the first one to answer.
He is. I have a list here, and I'm going in order. So he did. He was the first one to answer. So I'm just going by a list. And so with that being said, I'm now at Mr. Marchi for the pandemic has greatly damaged our local economy. If elected mayor, what will you do to restore Oceanside's economy? Mr. Marchi, you're on the clock. You got to unmute yourself.
I'm here now. That is a fantastic question that you really make. If I will have the answer for that, I'll be running for president instead. Now, what we can do is need to really understand that what the virus is and what kind of response we can provide from our government. Obviously, our government was absent at any level, very, very poor. For example, we have the essential workers. I am an essential worker. I mean, I am in construction, and taking the proper preventions, we were able to perform. I didn't see that from the city. What I did experience with the city of Oceanside was a complete shutdown, no explanations.
Okay, I think we lost Mr.
Ms. Williams, can I take a point of personal privilege really quickly?
Yes.
Since we have, so what I want to do is make it very clear to everyone.
Yeah.
You may, am I muted?
I got cut off again.
Okay,
I
one
got
second.
cut off.
Yes, so you had.
I'm back again,
Yeah,
I
he had
guess.
7 seconds. You have 7 seconds to wrap up your thought, Mr. Marchi.
Okay, mimicking the essential workers, the city has to perform better. And that's what I will propose. We need to be proactive and we need to do better than we did. We didn't do nothing in the city of Oceanside. Very poor,
Thank you, sir.
management.
Thank you, sir. Madam President, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you for that. So what I want to do is make sure that we're all very clear, whether you are panelists or whether you're attendee, that this is a space for everyone to be able to speak their mind and their opinion as far as relating to hearing what the candidates say. I do not want people to start taking offense on the chat and start trashing one another, because that's not what we're here for. You need to educate yourself, knowing what each candidate stands for, so you can make an educated vote. If that's not what you're here for, then it may be the wrong space for you. Again, we cannot adequately get this information if we're not listening and paying attention. Like I said, I take voting very seriously. I want to make sure you do the same, because we cannot get back if we miss a step. So please be attentive and put your questions forward, but let's keep it in a positive manner.
Thank you, Madam President. I can't read the chat because I'm moderating, but I can only imagine what's going on for you to have to address it. The question once again, and we're going to go to the next person, who is Mr. Rodriguez. The pandemic has greatly damaged our local economy. If elected mayor, what will you do to restore Oceanside's economy?
Absolutely, thank you. That's a very appropriate question. It's estimated that over 40% of Oceanside's businesses will close permanently due to the just the catastrophic damages and economic impacts that COVID-19 is causing our city. We have just over 6,000 businesses, both big and small, in our city, and they employ hundreds of thousands across our county. And it's so important that we provide as much support, resources, and opportunities for these businesses as we move post COVID-19 to help them rebuild. I was a part of ushering in a micro grant program, interest-free if paid back soon. Even that's not enough. The small business loans that businesses are being offered, that's not enough, but we have to focus on jobs. We obviously need to keep our core services going, and we need to come together as a community and work this out, and I'll be able to lead that effort.
Thank you so much. Ms. Sanchez.
I wanted to ask, did you want to ask Jack, or did you want?
No, because after it's going to be Mr. Chavez and then Mr. Feller. I started with Fernando. So I have a list I'm going by.
Thank you. Yes, this is, I should say, over 76% of Oceanside workforce leaves the city to go to work, takes the freeway, gets in a car. We need jobs in Oceanside. We desperately need jobs in Oceanside. And so what we need to do is, as was suggested, is be a lot more in control. And actually, we just did a economic development update to the general plan. And it's actually one of the elements. We haven't implemented that yet. We do need to empower the Economic Development Commission. We need to, this is a chance to reinvent ourselves and go for the green jobs. We know we have to do climate action plan requirements. And so we need to electrify. We need to find the kind of positions that are going to allow for Oceanside residents to have jobs. So I'd definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chavez?
Yes, what it is, it comes down to the issue of leadership and understanding the problem and defining the problem, be able to work towards it. The city of Oceanside's economic has three major tiers: the Department of Defense, pharmaceuticals and manufacturing, and then the service sector. The service sector, the one that's being hurt locally. The other two are going forward. Now, the virus is here. And one of the issues you need to understand about the virus, it's the duration of time that you're involved with somebody with the virus and the volume that you'd receive. There's a great thing called the Osterholm report, which I listen to weekly, and they talk about how this virus is progressing. When leaders use science and start putting policies based on science, then the economies can go forward. And you're seeing that in Europe and in Asia and other countries. The problem is we don't have that sort of dialogue within the city of Oceanside. So I'll be that leader that can do it. And on my webpage, I actually have a page on COVID-19 and recommendations. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Feller, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. I think the problem with the pandemic is it has been so destructive to be indoors for so long. But on just saying that, there is a thing in business which many people don't realize. If you allow the business people to do the work, to find their way out, give them the opportunities through our Economic Development Commission, through our zoning, our laws, we can make a lot of difference in everyday life of all these small businesses.
Thank you so much. And so we're going to go down to our next question. And the next person to start off with this question will be Mr. Howard. And the question is, if elected mayor, please detail exactly how you will address the homeless issue in Oceanside. What is your position on Brother Benno's? Would you fight to keep their doors open or fight to close them altogether? And so we'll start with you, Mr. Howard, and you will have 1 minute to answer the question.
Addressing homelessness, one of the things we need to do is evaluate what resources are actually going into homelessness right now. And that way we can begin as a city to support those things that are working and then make it measurable. Continue to reevaluate those resources that we're putting there. And that way we can start saying, these are the ones that are working. Homelessness is huge. There's a huge area spectrum of mental illness, but we need to direct our resources at what's working, and that's how we begin to move it forward and then start working at it one step at a time.
What is your position on Brother Benno's?
Brother Benno's can be evaluated just like each of the other programs. We do need services like Brother Benno's because while people, if you are not food insecure, then you don't think we need those services. But there are people who need them. Can we support them? Absolutely, we need to support them. But oftentimes these companies and nonprofits like Brother Benno's need that support.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next we'll have Mr. Major.
Well, this is a very important issue to me because I was homeless when I was a kid, and that was a very difficult thing for me. So I spent a lot of time on this particular issue and trying to develop a solution for the city. And I believe that this is there's actually a nonpartisan solution. Right now, Martin versus Boise, which is a Supreme Court decision that was affirmed through the it was a Ninth Circuit decision affirmed through the Supreme Court, says that if you're homeless, you get to live in public as long as there's not enough shelter beds for you. And at this point, we don't have enough beds for people, so they get to live in public in front of storefronts at the riverbed, and there's not really anything that police can legally do about it. They cite and ticket, but those get thrown out of court. So we actually need enough beds for them. So what I advocate for tiny homes in order to do that. And then we can become compliant and move them from the business fronts and from the riverbed. But you can't do that until you have that done. And that's not really partisan.
Thank you, sir. And so your stance on Brother Benos is yes, keep it, or no?
I think that with Brother Benos, just like anything else, there's a continuity of care, continuum of care for these nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit and you're helping out people that are working in the homeless crisis.
Your time is up. I just want to know if you would fight to keep the doors open or fight to keep them closed. Are you in favor of keeping Brother Benos open, or are you in favor of having them closed?
I think we should keep them open just like the rest of them.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Marchi, you're next. Unmute yourself, please, sir.
Yes. My position with the homeless is a very delicate topic because it is people are confined to poverty, and that line of poverty is so fine related with physical and psychological issues. So there's a lot of people out in the street with mental problems. So it is not just the financial. Now, but as a mayor, what I can do is I will impose 1-day permits for ADUs and homeowners that do a room addition. Impose in 1-day permit can be done. And in that sense, we got 150,000 citizens, 100,000 homes. If every home will allow to have an extra room, well, at least the homeless that they are do because they cannot afford a house, that will be sufficient enough. So as a mayor, that's a goal.
Your time is up. What is your position on Brother Benos? Either are you in favor of them staying open?
Totally, 100% support.
Okay, thank you so much.
Support.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Rodriguez.
Wow, 1 minute to answer this question. That's not enough time, but I'll do my best. Number one, Brother Benos, they have to stay. They've been a part of the community for a long time. They've helped hundreds and hundreds of, single moms, our seniors. They provide an amazing resource for our community, and I fully support them staying open. A small percentage of who they help are the chronic homeless that are committing crimes, that have felonies, and they're going there to, have services provided. So I would just like to work with Brother Benos on maybe not helping a certain, portion of the homeless population that are causing a lot of problems in our community. As far as the homeless crisis, that is my top priority. It's been a top priority for me since I've been elected, and I'm running out of time. So please check out my website and you'll see the 5 steps to end homelessness in Oceanside as a top priority of mine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. It is a shame that we have no shelters in Oceanside except for the Women's Resource Center that is for domestic violence. It is a shame. We have not ever been able to have a majority to do a shelter until recently, and that's because of the pressure by other North County cities and the county. So yes, absolutely, we need to build shelters. We are working on that. We are acquiring Ocean Shores, so hopefully there'll be at least 50 beds. We have already made a commitment to at least shelter at least half the unsheltered, but we need day centers too. We need to have people off the streets and being served. And so we really definitely need to do that, and not just one, but more than one. So we need shelters. We need to shelter the unsheltered, all of our Oceanside residents that are homeless. I am going to fight to keep Brother Benos open. It does a great service. That, in fact, is where a day center should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chavez.
Yes, thank you for asking this important question. I was very much involved with this when I was a council member. And right off the question, yes, I would support Brother Benos for a lot of reasons. But I would put homelessness in 5 different buckets. First is a mental health issue. And right now, one of the things we needed was Tri-City to get the behavioral health open. And when I got elected, I said I'd do that, and we're moving rapidly forward. If it wasn't for COVID, we'd be breaking ground right now. So I'm very happy how that's going. And as we know, a lot of mental health issues are with the veterans. The second issue is substance abuse, which needs a long-term solution, which Brother Benno is actively involved in. The third is the youth, children being abused at home, so they're on the streets running away, which is a sad story in itself. The other is economic, and that has to do with education and giving people opportunities. And we need to do more of those. And the fifth, quite frankly, is a lifestyle. Some people want to be homeless, but we as a city need to make sure that we have those services for those 5 different buckets. And as your mayor, I'd support Brother Benno's in addressing those 5 different areas. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Feller.
Thank you. The first off, Brother Benno's is a great asset, but they are not a responsible neighbor. And some of the makeup of their surroundings, it really makes it difficult to be happy with their service. And things like having a 15-year post office box at Brother Benno's isn't, somebody's not solving somebody's homeless problem. It's a huge issue. I think the private sector is going to make a big difference in our future. They've paired up Bread of Life with San Diego Rescue Mission, and I think there's going to be some very great things coming forward with this next 4 years.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Garcia.
Yes. So homeless is not a government problem or situation. It's not a community problem. It's both. So it requires a community and government solution. Everybody has provided some great ideas, but I think that's only half of it. The other half is identifying the root and the cause of the problem of each individual person to enable them to leave the homeless cycle. It's a cycle. No matter if you're a runaway, you're being abused, substance abuse, mental health, or whatever category, you just cannot put one solution for everybody. Everybody needs a detailed or an individualistic solution to the problem. Oceanside has that one homeless outreach team. I think we can better manage that by retraining those officers or restructuring that team, or another team. I think it's coming along. I think Measure X, I think it was that I read. And I think we can use those teams to identify each individual person to exit them out or enable them to exit the homeless cycle. So I think that's our solution.
Thank you so much. And what is your position on Brother Benno's?
Oh, and because I was an immigrant in the south side of Chicago, and I use places like Brother Benno's, I completely support it.
Thank you so much. And so we're going to now go to our next question, and you will have 2.5 minutes on this question. So it's a big one, and it's one that we really want to hear from. So you'll have 2.5 minutes, and the next person up to start with the answer is going to be Ruben Major. And so if elected mayor, what action would you take to assure the citizens of Oceanside that police officers would be held accountable for any misconduct? That's part one. Part two of the question, will you support an independent community oversight board with investigative, subpoena, and auditory powers in Oceanside? So the question again is, if elected mayor, what action would you take to assure the citizens of Oceanside that police officers would be held accountable for any misconduct? And will you support an independent community oversight board with investigative, subpoena, and auditory powers in Oceanside? Mr. Major, you're up.
Well, I would say yes to the second. That makes the first one easier. And so definitely we need to have community, not just community policing, but what I say is a citizen-led policing. And we need to take some of the control away from the officers that are directing how they're going to be disciplined. And I think that by having more community involvement in this particular process, we're going to have more buy-in, we're going to have better public safety. And there's a whole lot of different things that we can do. And again, that I had discussed this previously, And one of those things is making sure that we have more body cameras and making sure that we turn them on and keep them on, and that there's penalties for not having them on when you should have them on. And then the fact that you only have that footage for 6 months is quite concerning. So that definitely needs to be increased. I also believe that by having that community citizen-led commission, we're going to have more buy-in from the community as well as the officers too, when we get it going really well. And for me, this is a really important issue, because if you make the city feel safe and you make the residents feel safe, then the police officers are going to have an easier job. The other things that I think we need to look at too is restructuring some of the functions of the police department. And one of those things that I can see right off the bat is the homeless outreach team really should be a function of the emergency medical services division, public health, public safety. And so that really should be going over to our fire department, as well as this psychological emergency response team. You need to have people that are trained in medical dealing with these situations, rather than a couple of officers that maybe jump a call. And the budget's a little bit higher on the police end side, so you can actually save money by switching it over to the public health EMS side. So there's lots of good models for this throughout the country. And I think that we can take those ideas and implement them here in a way that's going to make people feel safer.
Okay, thank you so much. And I just want to remind all of the panelists that we do have a timer on. So if you can kind of look to your left and look to your right as you're speaking for the timer. Next, we have Mr. Marchi.
Yes, it is very important that the police officer is doing a great job. Unfortunately, these officers, they're so overwhelmed with the demands from the city and from the citizens. So what we need to do is not only retrain the officers, we need to provide them the right tools. For example, I was driving my car last week and I saw 3 police officers' cars stopping because was a dead animal on the road. So you are talking 3 officers with guns. So we need to create a new body of inside of the police department that they don't have to have guns. They're going to respond to social issues. They're going to respond to Mrs. Ann Cat. So in that way, we will release the duty of the police officer. And I'm not going to defund the police. I want to give them more money because they're going to be accountable. And it's going to be a reward, because nobody in the city of Oceanside, it is accountable.
Thank you, sir. Mr.
Thank
Rodriguez?
Thank you. Can you quickly just repeat the question?
Yes.
You can use up my time, that's fine.
If elected mayor, what action would you take to assure the citizens of Oceanside that police officers would be held accountable for any misconduct? Will you support an independent community oversight board with investigative, subpoena, and auditory powers in Oceanside?
Okay, first question is number one. It is very tough to be a police officer, especially today. I know many police officers, former military, a lot of them Marines, and I have one-on-one vulnerable conversations with them. You know, they have the body cameras, every action they do is being watched. You know, all of their hearts are for the city of Oceanside. They love our city. A lot of them live here. They have families here. And, you know, we've had some pretty traumatic events that have unfolded, and there's been a lot of unrest, and I fully support, you know, the protest and a call to action to create some change, because I do believe in certain cities, there's corruption. There are some bad cops, bad players, bad actors that need to be held accountable, and the corruption weeded out. But here in Oceanside, we're actually leading the pack. We have already implemented ahead of the curve every item on the 8 Can't Wait. We've led it. The last item that was banned was the carotid chokehold, which was formerly banned. as a part of, the protests and by Oceanside residents demanding some change. So, I support our police department. I support what they do in keeping our public safe, and being there as a resource, a very, very important resource for our city. If there was a situation where there was a shooting or there was an activity and there was a complaint made, I would fully support a thorough investigation of that claim. And as a matter of fact, we've looked at and we've done due diligence on claims over the past 10 years. And since all this came up, and Oceanside has done an excellent, excellent job of being transparent and dealing with any situations that have been brought up to the city manager or the police department, or just privately by an email. We currently have a police and fire commission that I served on, and residents are more than welcome to come and share their complaints. We talk about crime, we talk about safety, and I encourage everyone here to please participate in those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So just so I can make sure that I have an understanding as a citizen, are you saying that you will support a citizen review board for the Oceanside Police Department? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
No, what you're hearing me say is that we already have a commission and that we have channels and opportunities for the public, for the community, that if there was an issue, if there was a complaint, which are very, very rare in our city, we deal with them. However, if more complaints come in, I could tell you right now that if I'm notified by any complaints like this, we're going to take swift action to deal with it and to investigate it. But I'm not a fan of setting up a bunch of commissions and committees just to do it. And so I would encourage the public to get involved with the police and fire commission that we already have open to the public, and we can go from there as a first step.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. I think you all know I was born and raised in Oceanside, grew up in the same neighborhood where my dad grew up, and that's the East Side community. And while we didn't have any gangs before I left high school, it happened afterwards. And there's nothing worse than being stopped just because you're brown or you're black. And that unfortunately still continues. I'm really proud of the transition of our officers. When I first got on the council, what they were doing was, it was mostly a white male, a certain culture within the police department. What I saw were cop cars driving onto the park, chasing down the kids, putting them against the wall. Who do you claim? So this whole idea about every single kid must be tagged as a gang member. So it's been an effort to change that. So we had 2 police officers that were killed, and we had to come together as a community. So this idea of a community policing finally did, when we got a new police chief who was committed to the notion that every single officer had to be a community police officer. That really helped to see cops playing football with gang members that are tagged, and basketball and all the early stuff that we did in the neighborhoods to try to work out these relationships. A lot of that stuff is not happening anymore. What has really happened is that recently, and because of what happened to George Floyd, there's this attention now to what is still happening. And this is an opportune moment. I have signed the Police Accountability Now petition, and we do have to pass a protect ordinance. We do have to decriminalize low-level offenses and divert some of the funds. Once we get rid of some of the jobs of the police and make them more in a social situation, we do have to establish an independent oversight board. And how we do that, and that has to be with a diversity. There has to be a representation on that. Complaints, we still have complaints that somehow don't see the light of day, because either it's not easy to do, to file a complaint, or, you know, they're just kind of like moved around, shuffled around.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you. The first question was police misconduct. I believe that police, just as doctors, priests, and teachers, all need to be held accountable for their actions. And so I would definitely support that. You know, people who fill those roles that I just ran through, they're special in our community. We depend upon them. And so we hold them to a higher standard. As I used to always tell the Marine officers, you know, you're an officer and you have a higher standard than the enlisted Marines, because you have a different oath. So it's important to hold people with that much authority for any misconduct that they do. Now, your second question, would I hold an independent oversight board? Definitely, because I think right now, as we evolve forward, not that we have a problem here, but we need to have a sense of trust within the community that we're ready to deal with a problem. I know, as everyone else knows, listen to this, we still as a society have a problem with race. That's reality. And so we need to have institutions in place to deal with it. Now, I want to answer one of the questions you had. You said with subpoena authority. Now, a little bit I know, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe subpoena authority is issued by the clerk of the court, has to come from a court. The only other ones with subpoena authority, I believe, is Congress. And so does the city of Oceanside have subpoena authority? We don't have courts in the city of Oceanside. We have, you know, a city attorney, but we do regulations. When I was the assembly, you know, we did laws. So those are different authorities. So I'm just want to be clear on that, because I don't want to say I would do something that I'm not sure that we could do for legal reasons. And I just ended with this. Oceanside has come a long way. It was just 2 blocks from my house right here where Officer Bissett was shot. I see the monument there every time I drive. Another officer killed at the Navy Fed. There's a monument there for it. We had some tough times, but as I think we as a community came together and said we need to stop this, and with community policing, and I think Oceanside's done well, especially with the recent incident I talked about, Black Lives Matter, a peaceful issue in the city, and that's good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Feller.
Are you okay? Am I clear? Okay.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. First of all, as far as a oversight committee, that would sure have to be a well vetted group of people if that was ever to come to fruition. Whether I wouldn't, I don't believe, give any subpoena power, even if that's what that committee could do. This is a different territory for us, but I as far as the committee, we have a great police and fire commission right now, and I think part of what their job is to hear from the public. As far as the police officers, we did just purchase hundreds of vests or I'm sorry, cameras to be worn on their vests. Everyone's going to have one. The issue for me in this city is this is an outstanding police department. If you look throughout the whole country, nobody could have been much more safe during this time than we are, just because of the community policing, community neighborhood walks that these men and women with the police department do. And we are light years ahead of what we were in 2000 when both Esther and I came on. I believe that our police department is an outstanding group of men and women. They're diverse. They understand the same things that I do, and probably even that I learned as a new member in Oceanside in 1987. So my family is everything, and so is your family everything to me. So I want to make sure you understand that the police officer is going to be coming to your aid when you need it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Garcia, and then we'll have Mr. Howard. Mr. Garcia, you're up.
Yes, thanks. So the first question, making police accountable. In the Marine Corps, I'm a retired Marine. I wasn't enlisted to differentiate between Rocky and not. He was an officer. I was enlisted to do the real work. So just it's an inside joke. Anyways, we hold Marines accountable. So same thing for police, and it ties back to the comment I made earlier about committees and commissions. You know, we need to empower those committees and commissions. Somebody just mentioned the Police and Fire Commission. I think we need to, I've never heard of it. So I need to find out more about that. And if it's true, that answers question number 2 about the Independent Oversight Board. Now, I want to propose something different. For example, I live in the Irwin neighborhood. We're a tiny 1,000 home HOA. So we have contact with the neighborhood policing team. We have the 2 officers, and we meet with them, not on a daily basis, but every now and then we get to sit down and talk to them about our issues that we have and things like that to get a community response or community solution for policing. And I think I know the city has several sectors. The police department has divided into several sectors. So I propose this. Why don't we, out of those sectors, you want to select a oversight commission or the fire police commission, why don't have people from each sector represent each sector to address those issues? Doesn't have to be subpoenable, but I mean, we have a city council. We have a city council. We have a city manager that is accountable for the the police chief. We have a police chief. So there's there's this chain of command of people that are responsible for police actions, or for every citizen, Oceanside employee. So I think everybody ruled the word accountable, oversight, but eventually goes down to relationships and trust. This neighborhood policing team idea is fantastic. I mean, you deal with, you get to know the police that are in your district or in your city or in your streets. So if you don't know who's policing you, then you're not going to build that trust. So no matter how many boards or committees you have, it's not going to work. So before we talk about the Independent Oversight Committee, we need to address how are we going to handle the relationship between the citizens, the residents of Oceanside, and the police department.
Thank you so much. Mr. Howard.
Yes, during the period 99 to 2006, I was president for the NAACP. When we talk about this subject, there was a lot of community work going on to press the police to do the right thing with regard to accountability. I have a 6'4" gym rat son that I worry about every day. Why? Because the topic we're talking about right now, and for me as an African-American man that has been pulled over by the Carlsbad Police Department, while I was at the mall buying cookies for my wife, for no reason. The accountability is about trust. Can I trust that you are doing the right thing by our community? And the council, again, we have chain of command, but there needs to be oversight of that. If you do not want to have anyone have any oversight over you, then you don't have a reason to do the right things. I've been a nuclear plant operator for 31 years. There is an outside agency that has oversight. Why? Because we want to know as people, as a part of the public, that they can trust me to do my job. So we do need to have that oversight, not because I'm blaming every officer. That's not what we're doing here. We want all of the community to feel like I can trust them. Yes, we work on all those other things like relationships. But again, until there is tangible oversight and accountability by being able to have oversight, then it's not the trust, it has an ebb and flow. And if we put things in place to ensure that we are having adequate oversight, that the people who are doing the oversight are qualified, then that's when we begin to feel safer in our communities. I am not looking for a way to stop the protest. I'm looking for a way to solve the problem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Howard. And so we have our next question, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Marchi. So if you can unmute your phone. If elected, you will be our representative on Sandag. They spent $900 million of our tax dollars last year. Do you think we should build a robust transportation system that meets the needs of our senior citizens, employees, students, etc.? Why or why not? And you have 1 minute to answer the question.
Yes, Sandag has very good resources of money. And unfortunately, not only the city of Oceanside, the state creates some rules and regulations that there are roadblocks for Sandag to be efficient. We need to, of course, in my first comment, I said that we needed to bring sand to the beaches of Oceanside. And recently we have an operation bringing sand, and they have to cut it short because they have out of money or many other reasons to cut that short. So we need to task every function that Sandag can do for the city, and we have to have a common understanding in all the council members. It has to be unity in the council members to get the best of Sandag. I'm for progress, and we need to improve our roads. And I was involved in the fast train, and I think we need to do much better than what we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you so much. And so now just getting our timer together. They have 1 minute to answer the question. Thank you so much. Mr. Rodriguez, you're actually on the clock, sir.
Yes, I don't know if everybody's aware, but Sandag has passed tax measures approved by the voters, and Sandag and their staff leadership have done a very, very poor job of managing the funds. There's a major political issue where all of San Diego, the South Bay area has a lot of power over where those funds go. But up here in North County along the 78 corridor, we're neglected. We're heavily neglected, and we're left alone. One of the first things I got involved with when I got on council was, hey, what's the plan with the 76? Who's paying for it? What are we doing for it? The answer is nothing. Sandag doesn't have money. Caltrans doesn't have money. And the city has no plan on what we're doing with the 76 until I got on council, and I started to put pressure. So in the end, no, I don't support Sandag. They have a 3% ridership. They've mismanaged their money, and I'm not going to trust them with another tax measure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, Ms. Sanchez.
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. If elected, you will be our representative on Sandag. They spent $900 million of our tax dollars last year. Do you think we should build a robust transportation system that meets the needs of our senior citizens, employees, students, etc.? Why or why not?
Absolutely. It's the big five moves. And bottom line is what we ought to do is work closer together with other North County cities. And instead of the creeping that's going on with the trolley, that right now they're down in San Diego in near La Jolla, right? They ought to be doing it over here, because this is the place where, can you imagine a trolley downtown? Can you imagine doing it on Mission Avenue? I mean, these are the public transportation projects that we ought to be envisioning, that we ought to be talking about livable cities, a walkable, bicyclable friendly. We don't even have any separated bike paths other than the San Luis Rey bicycle trail. And we still have we still haven't finished even paying for or funding the coastal rail trail. So yes, absolutely, we can't have 76% of our workforce going out in cars. We need to do the public transportation. We have to do it now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chavez.
Well, the problem with Sandag is that a few years ago, there was a bill pushed forward by who's going to be the new mayor of San Diego to take all the power of Sandag and give it to the city of San Diego and to Chula Vista. And they can basically do whatever they want, regardless of what any city wants to do. I was the only assembly member to stand up to fought that battle, but it was strictly slanted to the larger cities. Do I support a diversification of transportation? I sure do. Oceanside has a number of hubs that we can do this with. However, I would ask you, everyone, to sit back and look at this. What is public transportation going to be in a COVID environment? Because even though COVID-19 is going to be gone in a year or 2 years with the vaccine, all studies I see, there's going to be another COVID like it behind it. So we need to relook at what is public transportation and how can we make sure that it's safe?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Feller. You have to unmute yourself, sir. So we can't hear you, Jack. Can you unmute yourself? Thank you.
Working on it.
Thank you, Mr.
Can you hear
Feller.
me?
Yes, we can.
I cannot see anymore, so something has happened to my screen. So I will just, I will tell you the 5 big moves is $177 billion. This is probably a lot of money to everybody that's in all these cities, but it all is basically filling in the needs of San Diego, Chula Vista, National City, and maybe up into the Sorrento Valley area. There is a huge issue with putting everybody in their cars, putting everybody in the trolleys that are already in their cars. There is nothing coming for roads, and I can't tell how much time I have left, but I can tell you when they made promises that North County was going to get money for their roads, and they broke the promise from
Yes.
2004. So I would just say, do not support the $177 billion.
Thank you so much. Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, so Sandag has a lot to answer to North County. So I think we need to revisit our relationship with Sandag, because I don't see that 3% return on investment to us. And you know what? It's the whole North County. So I propose this. We as a city talk to our neighboring cities to see what is their return on investment for each individual North County city, because I don't think we're being served. We're giving a disservice. All our taxpayer dollars and that 3% take back, it's money that we're paying that we're not getting anything back on. So why are we in a relationship that is not giving anything back? Why are we the only ones putting in? So I don't support anything to do with Sandag until they have a plan for us, for North County, the 76. It's horrendous. And yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Howard.
Yes, Sandag. I think as the mayor, and I'm with Sandag, one of the things I want to do is to actually go in and find ways to start moving the ball forward. We have a huge, a bunch of jobs that we're asking people to get to work downtown. We need mass transit. There's 800 parking spaces off the from the Sprinter along the way. We need to, you can't get people out of their cars, but you can incentivize them to use mass transit. We work with Sandag. We start working with the other cities in North County so that we can bring what we need to North County. Just giving up on it when it's there for us to use is a recipe for failure. We go in, and that's where the leadership comes in about moving resources to North County.
Thank you so much. Mr. Major.
Well, I think let's bring it back to COVID-19. We need some sanitation protocols, better cleaning of our transportation systems. And I do support a robust mass transit system, but we can be looking at different things like UV lights to clean, look into UV 222 frequency lighting. That's an interesting one. People are traveling too far to get to work right now. We need a representative on Sandag that emphasizes good transportation in our local areas and actually fights for Oceanside. We need better and higher paying jobs here in the city and mass transit to support that. And I say, yeah, definitely pay better attention to it. And we need to support green and solar and renewable energy as much as possible to lower our rates. And my goal is to pay better attention than has been paid in the past. And I want to get everybody to work together.
Thank you so much. And so we're gonna now move on to our next question, and the next person to start with the next question will be Mr. Rodriguez. The question is, do you support the upcoming ballot measure on the North River Farms referendum? Yes or no, why or why not? Do you support the upcoming ballot measure on the North River Farms referendum? Yes or no, why or why not? And you have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. Great question. Controversial question. Number one, the South Mayoral Hills area. I live in the South Mayoral Hills area. I have a farm. We grow guava, avocado, coffee, and passion fruit. And I love farming. But when I served on the South Mayoral Hills Board of Directors, one of our challenges was a lot of farmers were selling. They were selling because farming's expensive and they're looking to diversify their profits. And the only way to do that is through agritourism and community outreach and really grow an organic program locally. But we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the resources to do it. So after a year of review and negotiating with the North River Farms developer to give Oceanside a huge home run on infrastructure improvements, I voted to support the project. It was a policy decision. It takes 3 votes to pass anything in the city of Oceanside. But I also have voted to support Oceanside residents to vote on it this November and decide the fate of North River Farms. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sanchez. Unmute yourself, ma'am.
I am against the project, so I am urging everyone to vote no on Measure L. When this came up but by the staff to say, hey, thumbs up or thumbs down, should we even put any work into this? This was a general plan amendment in farmland where we have no water hookups, no sewer hookups, and no roads. And you know, it would be urban sprawl. It didn't pass any checks. It wouldn't provide affordable housing. It wouldn't provide, anything positive for the city of Oceanside. The staff recommended against it. The staff recommended against it every single time. The Planning Commission voted against it twice. This is not a good project for us. It is urban sprawl. This will end up costing our citizens, our taxpayers. We may even have to end our after-school programs because this does not pay for itself. So I'm urging everyone to vote no on Measure L. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Mr. Chavez.
Yes, I'm also against this project, and I'm against the project. As I stated in the city council, I spoke twice on it. I'm not against development, but I believe in a process. And the process that was gone through, going to the Planning Commission, and then going on to the council was cut short. And when I asked the people who voted for this project, they told me, you know, we heard from the Planning Commission enough and we knew what they're going to say, so we're going to just do what we want to do. That's exactly what you should not do. Just because you have the authority and power doesn't mean you should do it. And so that's why I'm strongly against it. I also live in this community. I've lived in this community for 20 years. And I can tell you, everybody up here in Sonoma Hills and Arrowwood, they are strongly against that project. And then and people who are supporting it, I'm going to be upfront with you. Follow the money on this one. See who's got the money from the developers. You can see it, call it out. And the people who are saying they're for this took the money.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Feller? Yep, thank you.
Okay. I am for this project. I was for Arrowwood when it was built. It was built on farmland. It's provided a new school, a new park. It was a beautiful asset. People loved to live there, and that's what I think about this new project that's out there. It will bring infrastructure, and it is property rights for farmers. I support it.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Garcia?
Yes, I also live in Mayoral Hills in Arrowwood, and you know, they say that, you know, for the Fowler said that he supports because Arrowwood was in farmland, but that was a different time. The project was done correctly. We went through a process. I have a master's degree in public policy, and I know how processes run. And there was infrastructure built. We have two bonds that we pay for all the infrastructure, you know, in the school and the roads. So now with this project, everything was done in closed doors. So when we're talking about adding 1,000 cars on North River Road, you're asking for trouble. The planning commission voted 3 times on that, I think it was, for no, and I spoke twice on that, no, and yet the commission the council went ahead and did it. So that's not listening to the people. So I vote no on Mayoral. I completely am against Northern Farms.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Howard?
Yes, I don't support the project right now, and here's why. When you put that much density in one spot, if you'll look coming west, there's a lot of improvements and that's all great. But when you go east, it's a 2-lane windy road, and the last time when they had fires out there, it was difficult to get people out. And so I as mayor want to focus on ensuring that we update our land use plan so we don't have this problem. One of the things is when you don't have a land use plan that tells the developers, this is what we're going to build and where, then we have these issues. Similar to downtown, we have high-rise buildings going in downtown, but yet the fire engine that has the ladder on it is 9 minutes away. And those in public safety know that's an awful long time to wait for support. So, and we're just rolling the dice. So we need to update our land use plan so that we can actually plan for Oceanside.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Major?
Last year, I spoke against this project at the city council. I also helped to get signatures for the citizen-led referendum Mayoral that's going to be out there on the ballot. So I put my money where my mouth was. I think my biggest concern as a paramedic is that this project site sits in an extreme fire risk area. And it's very concerning. During the Lilac fire, my son and I were driving back from the Fallbrook evacuation center there. And we saw all these flames and very, very close to this project, where this project site sits. And so I think the potential for people to get injured or die in their car is too great. And I think this is definitely a project that needs a lot of review, a lot of improvements, if ever to go back to the council. But the point is that our team has spoken to hundreds of voters, thousands of voters who don't want this development. It's bad for our community and our environment, for future generations. And it's also, I believe, very corrupt. And yeah, follow the money on this one.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marchi?
I don't support the project, even though I'm a contractor, an engineer. We need to make a shift in the mind of the city, because how are we going to sustain as a city if we don't have revenues, if we don't have building projects? This project is going to bring $5 million just to the city in permits. It's going to be a lot of money for the housing authority that is being ruled by the city of Oceanside. So we cannot be just negative saying no and killing the project. We need to be a negotiator. We need to be a dealer and make these developers understand that they can make money and they have to supply housing for the needy. And we need to renegotiate that for sure.
Thank you,
We need
sir.
a negotiator in the council meeting because so far I don't see it.
Thank you, sir. So we're going to move to our next question, and Ms. Sanchez will be up first to answer the question. And the question is, do you recognize the racial, social, and economic injustices that exist for communities of color, LGBTQIA+ members, and people with disabilities in Oceanside today? If elected mayor, what will you do to embrace the diverse community in Oceanside? Will you commit to policies which significantly reduce these disparities? And you have 1 minute to answer.
Thank you for the question. I have been working on those issues all the time that I've been on the council. When Max Disposti started coming in and asking for proclamations and declarations, it wouldn't happen. We've been working together to change things within, and we're talking systemic change. When we got graded even lower than Escondido, I put together a meeting this is on LGBTQ issues with staff, and that was with the city manager and personnel and with Marjorie Pierce. And we were able to change rules and policies just like that overnight, just like that. It didn't go to the dais. This was all within the power of the city manager. Yes, as mayor, I would move even faster than that, because this equality issue, we're 51% diverse, 51%. My goal is that everyone receive services, the same level of services, and that every single person feel safe to go down the street, and that every person be treated equally. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chavez.
Yes, it's clear to me that we have injustice within our society, and even here in Oceanside. So the question is, what are the policies that you would implement? Well, back before 20 years ago, before Jim Wood got on, we used to have a routine meeting between education and the city to make sure that the city was supporting education, especially with the kids of color. That went away in 2004. I would reinstitute that again, because I think though school districts are responsible for education, there's also a role for cities. We talked earlier about policing. Policing has to be dealt with. That's why I would support an oversight committee or some institution that allowed that to be discussed. And we also need to look at affordable housing, not just shacks, but quality affordable housing on transit lines to ensure that people can get to work. When people of color get their education taken care of, can be safe, and they have a warm house, that's how they move through the American dream, and I'd support that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Feller?
Thank you. I'm actually a person that thinks you should be kind to everybody. You should have the same opportunity. I don't know how you afford to give it as government, but at least treat it as government, the opportunity for everybody equally. We've spent a lot of years smoothing things out, and Oceanside is light years ahead of what it was. I just I praise what people have accomplished in Oceanside. They've made great strides, but it can't always be about the government. It can't be the government's responsibility every time to make sure everybody gets the same thing, because it just doesn't work that way. Churches can make a difference for us all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, some of my friends are calling my Rocky. Thanks, Rocky. But the key point of this is education. You cannot move. You cannot, move up the upper mobility ladder without proper education. Education in different things. Marine Corps, we have all kinds of training, yearly training. You know, we have to sit down and go through all these different things. And the city shouldn't be any different. There's all kinds of bias. You know, you got to recognize biases. You got to recognize differences in culture, ideologies, religion, and you know what? We're all the same. We're all the same, and that's the kind of training that I would push into talking about policies. Push into the city manager, through the city manager and all the city employees, including police, to have that, you know, equal opportunity training and things like that. And as far as the schools, that was a very, very important part for me. We need to establish and regain that conversation with the education system, with our local schools to do the same.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Howard?
Yes. What we ought to be looking at, I teach, well, when I was at Edison, I was a diversity trainer. And one of the things I would ask people is, do you know, or do you understand tolerance? People talk about tolerance and they say yes. But then I ask them, have you ever been tolerated? And so we can go beyond that from a policy prescription to ensure that the staff is doing what needs to be done. And if they don't know, then we train them. That they need to know simple things. We contract out quite a bit. How do we decide who those contractors are? We need to make those opportunities open to diverse groups. We need to make an effort to ensure that everyone is included in that piece. It's about access. With regard to the education piece, where we are is, it makes good business sense for us to ensure that the businesses that we're trying to bring to Oceanside have a pool of qualified applicants, and that's where we can become that bridge and ensuring to facilitate those meetings to make that happen. And I'm out of time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Major?
This is a very important issue for me. So I've done a lot of work on voting rights and protecting the voter registration rolls statewide. So I would say I would bring that same level of tenacity to the city. I'll definitely commit to increasing diversity wherever I can. Public education is very important in this area. So not just the high schools, but the workplaces, the colleges, and through community events. Also, something that's really important for people in the city of Oceanside to know is that minorities and LGBTQ are disproportionately homeless. In fact, it's an incredibly high rate. And so this is our top issue here. So if we have better education and public support for these particular issues, we can actually put a dent in those before they become bigger. I also want to see a diversity commission to help get more community input on the issue and to ensure that our public services departments, city departments are diverse and meeting the standards that they need to meet.
Thank you so much. Mr. Marchi?
Yes, I support the LGBTQ community 100%. Seem like my brothers, Black brothers. As you know, I'm a Latino speaking. I've been victim of discrimination many times. Even though I look very white, I don't sound white. And let's focus in the city of Oceanside. As a mayor, I will make sure we change the brief of the public servant. We need to get more people with diversity in sex and gender, and we have to be open. We are an enclosed city. We look like a feudal city. I grew up in a dictatorship, and city of Oceanside is the same. It's a dictatorship. Power to the extreme. They don't want to share power. That's called ignorance and fear. I'm a social liberal. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I've been around the world many times. So I've been in big cities, and I understand, I appreciate diversity.
Thank you, sir.
So I will make sure that will happen in Oceanside as a mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you very much. I think being in the role of mayor and being the face and the leader of a city, first and foremost, a mayor does not have any more power or authority to just enact laws or bring about policy. It's actually required to have the support of another colleague, and then it takes 3 votes to get anything done in our city. So any statements that says, I will do this, I will do that, I'm assuming you all realize that's subject to getting support both from the dais and city staff and moving in a direction of our city. And to move in a direction for our city, it takes a plan, it takes vision, and it takes the involvement of our very, very beautifully diverse community. And so I think, number one, the promotion of community, the promotion of family, our education systems, which, by the way, council does not have authority over. That is the school board and the superintendent, that's their jurisdiction. But we can work with the school board, we can work with the community to create more community opportunity and more events to bring our community together and work those differences out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And so our next question we have, and we're just going to ask you to just 1, 2, 3. You don't have to expound on it, but just give us what are your 3 major items you would address upon being elected as mayor? So what are the top 3 things if you were elected to mayor and you went into the office? What are your top 3 priorities? Just 1, 2, 3, and we'll start with Mr. Chavez. You have 1 minute.
Well, I'm going to call it my 3 E's. I'm going to work on the economy because I know after the COVID, and COVID's going to be here for another year, 2 years. And so we need to look a lot at the regulations, how we can ensure our small businesses, our service community go forward. So my first E would be the economics. My next E would be energy. We know we're seeing the rolling blackouts. There's a lot of discussion about community choice aggregates. There's some real issues in there that you need to look at. Where I support renewables, we need to make sure that the city doesn't go out on a limb and puts itself in a place where it's going to cost our residents a lot. So I would be looking at a diversified portfolio that is sustainable and affordable. And my next issue I'd look at, the third E would be education, because education is a stepping stone to everything. And that's why I support that 100%. And though it is with the school boards, there's also with leadership from the city on seeing what we can do to help our children. That's what
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Feller.
Thank you. I believe exactly what Rocky said. It is going to be the economy that gets us moving again. Education, we did have a 2-on-2 with the school board going until about 6 or 7 years ago. So that is something that would be immediate. I think that's a very important tool to be working together with the schools for the education component. But I'm going to say that right now, public safety and homelessness are probably my top 2, and I hope to see great strides in homelessness with this partnership with some of the other nonprofits.
Thank you, sir.
Make that difference, get the beds.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, my number 1 would be homeless. It's on everybody's mind. And I say the way to do it is through restructuring the homeless outreach teams to identify the cause or the root of the problem and why the person is in the homeless cycle. Number 2 would be committee empowerment. In this case, the Economic Development Committee, empowering them to come up with real solutions and real plans to identify how, as a city, how can we support businesses and get city, the Chamber of Commerce. How can we support businesses to create jobs and be more productive? But we can't do that unless we take the advice and recommendations of experts in the field in these committees to make it happen. So yes, it is financial. We need to get our economy going after COVID. And number 3 is traffic. We need to revisit our relationship with Sandbag to see whether they're going to help us or not. If they're not going to help us, we need to figure out a way to help ourselves and alleviate our traffic problems.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Howard.
Yes, my number 1 is the short term, and that's COVID recovery. 1, we have to, again, put our plan together, but also we have to build trust as we're doing it, because it is going to be a long term. We need to make sure we have the systems in place so that people actually trust And that's how we get the economy moving. So COVID recovery is first. Second is homelessness. As I spoke before, we need to attack it directly and start working on the issues that have been successful. And lastly, I would say climate action, because that is a long-term operation. One of the things in that is we need to start looking at mass transit. We also need to be looking at how we have to be innovative around our energy sources and how we're providing energy for the city. And it's a way to put people to work. Imagine actually having, putting weatherization on the older homes in Oceanside, where we're putting young people where they're learning skills and they're growing, and then they can get into that economy. So again, COVID recovery, homelessness, and focusing on climate action, which is a multi-layered process.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Major.
So I would say first, just take a look at my website, rubenmajor.com. I have a bunch of plans listed as far as what we need to do in the city to get it back on track. And the first thing is that we have COVID. This is a big issue for us. It's going to be a big problem going forward, and we need to be able to have somebody with public health experience dealing with this particular issue so that we can mitigate as much damage as possible to our city. The homeless and housing crisis in our environment, I've spoken on these already. And again, there's some more details on my website if you want to take a look at that. And calling out corruption, I think that would be the other thing, is we need to start listening to our community. I want to represent the people of Oceanside, not people who want to fill my pockets with donations. Let's take our city back and let's make Oceanside a happy city.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marchi.
Yes, I believe, first of all, that we have to have as a mayor, I have to be the leader. And as a mayor, I will do. My first thing as a doer is change the infrastructure. We got drinking pipes with asbestos in Oceanside in 2020. The housing was provided in 1940s for the military coming from the Second World War. They're full of asbestos, termites, obsolete, low insulation. We need to change that. Change in the infrastructure. We need to improve our building departments. We need to change our city manager for somebody who's more expeditious and a doer. And my office will be open doors, because the economy cannot be built with a wish, only with do. That's the only thing that I know from my Italian parents, working hard every day. For me, doesn't exist a holiday, doesn't exist a COVID, doesn't exist anything.
Thank
Your
you, sir.
mind is your power.
Thank you, sir.
You need leadership.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you so much. You know, I have a vision and a plan to end Oceanside's homeless crisis, enhance public safety, support small businesses, and bring housing affordability relief to our seniors, veterans, and hardworking Oceanside families. It's essential to the future of our city that we create economic opportunities and implement housing policies that prioritize Oceanside residents over development. If you live in Oceanside, you should be able to afford to work. If you work in Oceanside, you should be able to afford to live here. And thank you so much. I'm open for questions. Check out my website. Give me a call. I'd love to meet for coffee, and we can go from there. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. First of all, we have to have a better balance because otherwise we're not going to be environmentally and economically sustainable over time. We have the worst jobs to residents ratio in the entire county. That means we don't have any jobs in Oceanside, not enough jobs in Oceanside. What I want to do, because housing is what everyone is wanting to do, is come up with a very strong housing, with very strong housing policies, okay, so that we can reach our RENA numbers and ensure that it's an infill and ensure that it actually gets built. And with respect to the affordable housing piece and homelessness, what we need to do is buy land and start getting, start getting it built, including shelters. Number two, we need to have a strong economy. And in order to do that, we need to, first of all, strengthen and implement our climate action plan. And that part of that is our CCE, our community choice energy. And third, to address community police relations, police accountability, also a diversity commission, which used to be called the Human Relations Commission, which was unfortunately cut off in 2010. We need to implement that as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Esther Sanchez. And I used to be the chairperson of the Community Relations Commission,
Yes, you are.
now the chairperson of the City of Oceanside Housing Commission. Okay, so as we're beginning to wrap everything up tonight, we're gonna, before we get to our last question for this evening, I would like to ask the candidates to drop their public contact information in the chat for those that may not have had an opportunity to ask your question directly. Or you may have someone out there who would like to assist you with your campaign. So if you can just take a moment and drop your information into the chat of how people can contact you. We had a ton of questions to come in, and unfortunately, due to time constraints, we couldn't get to all of the questions. The ones that came directly into the NAACP, we are going to email those out to each of the candidates. But if they want to contact you directly. Thank you. And as we close, we're going to give each of you 1 minute to sum up everything. Please tell the citizens of Oceanside why they should vote for you. And we will start with Mr. Feller.
Thank you. Oceanside has come a long, long way under this city council that has been, a couple of us have been around 20 years, and it's made a huge difference. We, fortunately or unfortunately, because we were a bedroom community, we survived this pandemic much better than most cities. So we've built homes, we've made infrastructure changes, we've trying to get self-sufficient in water. Oceanside is just a great place, and I'm been honored to serve for 20 years. You all are great speakers, great candidates, and I want to say this is a great place to live, work, worship, and play. God bless everybody.
Thank you so much. Mr. Garcia.
Yes, I love Oceanside. I decided to retire here 12 years ago. You know, I love here so much. I'm really, really genuinely concerned for our community. I have zero ties to special interests, big donors, or developers. It's just me. I'm the only one. I'm the only campaign contributor to my committee. I'm a one-man committee. I'm all about facts and addressing questions directly in my Facebook. I don't have a fancy webpage. It's just getting a message out. I'm just a resident of Oceanside running for mayor because I want to serve the people. That's pretty much it. I have the experience and the leadership to run and to work at city council, work here in my community. I'm a volunteer here in my community. I'm an activist. Speaking about Northern River Farm, that was my first one. So yeah, so if you vote for me, if you vote for me, you're voting for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Howard.
First, I want to thank the NAACP for doing this forum. I think it's great when we get a chance to actually have conversations about what's going on in our city. I am running for mayor because this is a city that I really, truly love. I am also retiring here, and I have spent 30 plus years working with the community, working with utilities and telecoms, working with legislators, doing the work of being a resident and a community member. Now it's time to translate that to City Hall, because one of the things I focus on is bringing people together. We have to decide whose team we're on. Are we on Oceanside's team? Are we out looking for ourselves? We can do this together. And I want to work with you as we do that. So I ask you, consider me, Rob Howard, candidate for Oceanside Mayor, for your vote on November 3rd, or get that mail-in ballot early.
Thank you so much, Mr. Howard. Mr. Major.
Well, thank you very much for putting on the forum. This is great. I think this is the first time that all of the candidates have been here in one setting. So I hope that we have some more of these discussions, because it's nice to hear everybody's ideas And for me, what I want to see is an Oceanside which is designed for our community, not for outsiders. I want an Oceanside that focuses on our needs and not the select few who benefit from pay-to-play government, which we've seen. I believe we need a fresh face, some new ideas. Business as usual hasn't worked, and we don't need people who have sat on the council for decades. We need some new ideas. But most of all, I want to listen to you. I want to listen to your ideas, and I want to get Oceanside to be a better place for Oceanside.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marchi.
I love Oceanside, and I cannot be just a dreamer thinking that it will change by itself. Like I said, I grew up in Argentina. I saw a dictatorship. I saw abuse of power, and I saw no dialogue, no inclusion of everyone. And what I mean everyone is everyone, not the few that they can run the city as a little feudal or little kingdom, thinking that power is forever, sitting for 20 years, getting not term limits, and this agony of pay to play. And because we know someone, we want to keep it forever. That needs to change. But I'm not going to do the change by myself because my name is Fabio. No, that is going to happen. It's going to happen because all of you are going to take a decision, and you need to change. You need to change the people that are in. We need new blood, we need new mind, and we need doers and people that are willing to give up everything for the city, not to put in their own pockets.
Thank you, sir.
Vote for Fabio. Very simple.
Thank
And
you,
things
sir.
will get done.
Thank you,
sure.
sir. Oh, yes, sir.
Love
Thank
you
sir.
all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez.
Awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you to the NAACP for facilitating this. I think it was very professional, very well managed, and I thank you so much for that professionalism and leadership for this panel discussion. You know, I'm running from a safe seat, so same with Esther. What that means is if I don't get elected, I'm still on the council, and I can tell you right now that I'm going to work very hard to earn everyone's vote. But everybody on here, I can work with. I can sit down at a table. I can have a conversation. I can listen, and I can compromise to come to a common ground to get things done for our city. And that's what we need, is a leader that can regionally be a voice for our city, that can fight for our city, but also has the humility to sit down and listen and work hard for the residents that we love and care about. And when COVID-19 hit, I decided to completely donate my salary back to the city. I have not taken a paycheck since March. I'm very blessed. I work full-time. I'm not retired like many of these candidates. And so this isn't convenient for me, but it's something I love and I feel obligated to do as a calling in my life to represent my family and the city of Oceanside. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. I was very blessed. My parents were farm workers. They were very poor. We grew up in the East Side, and I learned the value of community. I learned to love not only my family, but my community. They didn't have a whole lot of education, but they believed that their kids should have education. So I went out, I got my degree in planning, I got my degree in law, and I came back to my community to give back to my community. So I am the only candidate who has a planning and legal background. In the time that I've been there, I have been working full time, even though I had a job with the public defender's office. And so I did the 1,000 affordable housing units, the Alcorazone Park, the community policing, jump-started economic development, protected our environment, and sand on the beach. And what I want to do is work with everyone and do this even faster and do it more effectively, because we have to do this now. My name is Esther Sanchez. I'm running for Oceanside Mayor. I will be the first woman mayor. EstherForMayor.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chavez.
Okay, very good. I want to thank NAACP for doing this. This has really been a professional product, so thank you. And I'd also like to thank all the candidates. I guess there's about 8. There's 4 or 5 that decided not to participate, but having ran a number of races, I can tell you it's hard. So I appreciate everybody doing that. You know, I think it gets down to this. Future performance can often be determined by past performance. I'm the only one up here who's had a total career in the Marine Corps of almost 3 decades, who was a city council member, who's a director of a charter high school, who served at a state agency, an agent secretary, sat on both Schwarzenegger and Brown's cabinet, assembly member who served 6 years in the state assembly. I was appointed by Governor Brown and then by Governor Newsom to represent California, the Department of Defense. I get things done, and I'd be honored to have your vote to allow me to be the mayor of Oceanside to move us forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chavez. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to be your moderator this evening. Please know that this program, you can actually get a copy of this program. The recording will be on YouTube through the NAACP's YouTube page, as well as our Facebook page. So that's NSDC NAACP, and we're branch 1086. And so at this time, I would like to turn this program back over to our President Satya Austin.
And so I definitely want to take a minute out to thank everyone for joining us this evening. I want to reiterate again how important it is to not neglect your vote, to make sure that we're educating everybody, regardless of the various platforms, regardless of who you want to vote for. Knowing about each candidate is essential because it's not about favoritism. It's about who's going to get the job done and what they're going to represent in our cities, in our government, in our nation. And we need to start doing our job. We have a lot of work to do. So again, any one of you could be our next mayor. We're going to hold you to the fire. We're going to make sure you do what you say you're going to do. And that's important to us, again, because right now we are a city at unrest. It doesn't matter if we didn't have the grandiose things happening in Oceanside. All it takes is one incident. And so you need to be prepared in what you're doing and making sure, again, you don't just talk. You're doing some action, and it has to start now before the election. You're making sure that you can do whatever you can do to make sure this is a democracy for all people, not just one-sided. And again, I'm going to hold you to that. Our members are going to hold you to that. I thank each and every one of you attendees that are patiently waiting by. Again, we're going to make sure that if your question wasn't answered, that we get it to the candidates. We're going to do our best to make sure that happens. Again, because I do not want you to take this lightly. I thank you for your time. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Good
Proud
night.
member
Be
of
safe.
NAACP.
Yay.
Yes.
Remember, you need to join.
Yep. Everybody needs to join. Thank you.
I've been a member for decades.
Thank you.